Welcome back, guys. Today we are going to be doing part 3 of our Predator 212 build. We're going to try to get this thing back together and get it reassembled so we can put it back in the go-kart. I'm ready to see how this thing performs after we've done all this to it. We're going to be doing the rod, piston, cam, just a complete reassembly. So stay tuned and let's get this going. Also, before I do go, if you haven't seen part 1 or 2, I'll leave a link in the description so you can go back and watch those. Or if you just need to have a quick little update of how to put it back together, let's go. Alright, we're gonna get started. You can see the edge is all cleaned off, the inside's clean. It is ready to get going. There'll be a little brake clean left in there. But we're gonna get started. You want everything to be as clean as you possibly can. Clean surface, just everything. I have a little pad down here that'll catch anything, so I'll just take this, give it a little spray down. Make sure it's nice and clean. We're going to use assembly lube as much as possible on everything. Going through the bearing, everything. Got a little thing of oil. Paper towel, dump some oil inside that bearing so it's not completely dry. Before we stick the crank in, we are going to check to make sure that the rod and bearing clearance is where it's supposed to be. So the bearings that were provided in the kit. What we're gonna do is take the cap off the rod. These are 1/4 inch 12 point. If you look, they go back together. They're the two little dots right here on the side. But yeah, there's 2 dots. They go back together that way. There's gonna be a little notch that is for the notch on the bearing. Press it down in there, it'll click. Same with the cap, there'll be a notch. And when it's in there, you'll be able to see the small hole for the oiler. The bearing has a hole in it and it goes through the cap. So now, in the vise over here, I'm gonna move it. We're gonna take the rod and protect it and put it inside of a rag or a leather glove, maybe. Now we have our bearings in there. Take the crank, slide it in, then from the parts store you can get plastic gauge. It's real thin, and when you tighten it down, it'll squish it, and then you take the numbers on the side and you'll see what your clearance is. So we'll take a little piece of that. And we're just gonna lay it across the top. Then we'll take our cap. You remember the little dot? We're gonna line that up. The little dot right here. Put that down in there. Take our bolts and we're gonna dip them in some oil. So that little jug I had, we'll take just a little cap full. Dip them in oil. Thread it. And then we're gonna set this to 60, and we're gonna go back and forth from 60 to 170 until we hit 170. Then we'll take it back off and check with our little gauge on the package it came with and see where we're at. 60 inch-pounds. And final 170. All right, we got it tightened to 170. Take it back off. Take this. We're at 2.5 thousandths, so that is acceptable. I believe in the book says between 2.5 thousandths to 3 thousandths, we are good. We'll break clean in a paper towel. Got all that off. And get it off the inside as well. And we'll jump back over here, start throwing this thing together. All right, got the crank back in. Now, the rod's gonna go in just like this with the oil scraper down. So now, before we put it all back together, we need to install our new piston. So with it going back in with our case, this is how it sits. In the first video, I told y'all to make sure you remember the arrow. This one also has the arrow pointed down. So it needs to go on just like this. So we'll take some more assembly lube, wrist pin, your rod inside your piston. Don't drop it. We'll put some assembly lube on the piston as well. Your scraper's pointed down, your rod arrow's pointed down. You got your wrist pin in. We're gonna take little clips that come with it. There's a little bitty groove on the inside. Just a little groove. Take this little guy and push it in there. Done. Now, gotta put the rings on, and the piston's ready to go. So, you have some different ones. This one is the one I got from Go Power Sports. It doesn't come with instructions, so I'll tell you on the rings, if you look real close, one says D and one says DY. You'll notice the one that says DY has a shiny chrome little lip on it. This one is just solid black. The one with the DY is your top one, and you're going to want to base the letters up towards the top of the piston, and then these don't really matter. It's your oiler. So we're going to put it on first. Slide it down. There's that one. Same with this one. We'll go over the top. Then we're gonna do our solid black one. It has D on it. So if you look where the arrow is, I did the very top oiler ring right there. So we'll go about 120 to probably the corner on the other side of the wrist pin over here with this one. And they all need to be about 120 a piece, like degree to 120, so they're all at separate angles. So that one went on really easy, and you can see I'm gonna leave it over here. You got your oilers here, second ring, and then your other one will go on this side around the same. DY with chrome lip also goes up, so we're gonna put it over here. Easy peasy. And you see, very bottom. Then we go over here. This one's angled over here on that corner, and then we twist to this side, and we want this one about right there. And they make a special tool for the rings, but I'm trying to do it with as little tools as possible so people can see how to do it without the special tools. Hopefully this compresses down enough. Alright. We'll start squishing this one in. Make sure one last time that you have all your rings where you want them. Slide that over. Tighten that sucker down. Now, take our case, take our bolts out. Since we oiled that bearing, make sure you don't lose a washer. We got oil in the case, so I'm gonna set these right inside the case. And the oil that's puddled up there, this is nice and cleaned off, clean surface. More assembly lube. This thing's gonna smoke like crazy when we start it. Burn off all that assembly lube. Skirt's not sticking out far enough. I'm just gonna tap it a couple times. You'll see the skirt starts popping out. Slide this over right to where the skirt is in there. Check this one more time. Nope, it ain't going no tighter. Skirt's in there. I like to tap around just to make sure everything is flush on there, and then you just take your hammer, put the journal as far away as you can, and just give it a couple taps, check it. Done, son. Cap. Assembly lube on it. Just like that. Flip this thing out. All right. Let's get this thing torqued. All right. Piston, rod, and crank is all back in, so I'm gonna clean up my area just a little bit and we will move on to the next step. All right, we are going to move on to the head. So I got the head stud kit from Go Power Sports. I'm gonna get that installed, the fire ring, head gasket, and our head that we port and polished. So I'm gonna put a little oil in here. Now this, you just lightly want to coat them. You don't want to put a whole bunch, because if you get a whole bunch, it can cause there to be oil in the very bottom, and then when you torque these down, it basically is building up compression, and you take the chance of building up an air pocket. It has nowhere to go. You keep tightening it and it'll pop. Just a light coat, and we'll throw these in. So this is the fire ring. This is what they recommended at Go Power Sports when I talked to them. If you look, when the piston goes all the way up at top dead center, it is completely flush. And if you do the smaller one, the smaller head gasket, you'll have a little piston valve kiss, and that's bad. You don't want those to kiss, because they kiss, you know, run. But yeah, I'm gonna throw this, just should slide right over. I might have to enlarge the holes. I think I read somewhere this is the non-Hemi, so I think I'm gonna have to enlarge the holes just a hair for these to slide over the dowels, but it gives you the room for it. So I'll do that real quick and be right back. Okay, we're back. Holes are enlarged, let's see if it'll fit. Make sure it clears all the way around. We're good there. So now it's time to put on your head. At the very bottom, remember your little push rod guide right here. That's gonna go to the bottom through this hole right here. We're just gonna slide that right on. And then these in here will be a little bit trickier. So the paper towel trick, this is what I do when I can't get my fingers in there. Take your nut, put it over, paper towel over it, and then rip it off. Get all these hand tight, and then I'm gonna look up the torque real quick and we will go from there. Okay, so I had to check the spec to make sure, but on the bag it said 20 foot-pounds. I just wanted to verify that. So we're gonna torque this head down to 20 foot-pounds in a X pattern. Change my units to 20 foot-pounds. So we are actually gonna start off at 10. Now we'll go up to 20. Verify them again. 20, right on the money. This one. There's our new cam. That tells you what to set your lash and everything at, so we're gonna hold on to that. So we got your cam up here. We have our tappets. Them wiped down. We'll get some more assembly lube. Stick these up in there. And the assembly lube should keep them from sliding out. Okay, if you look on the crank gear right here, there's gonna be a dot somewhere on one of these teeth. There's a dot on that. And on the new cam, there should also be a dot right there. So when you slide it in, you want those two dots to line up perfectly. This came out of the bag pretty oily. Probably to keep it from rusting, I'm just gonna cover this thing in some assembly lube. And then you just stick it right back in the hole where it's supposed to go and line the dots up. If you look, the dot on the cam is at the bottom of one of the grooves, in between kind of. It's not dead on one of the gear teeth, and on the crank it is actually on the gear tooth itself. So when you slide them together, they meet. But your cam gear is back in. Your tappets are still up in there. Spray off your push rods. Give them a little wipe. Now don't tilt your engine over anymore because this cam will pop right out. So in the guides for the push rods, at the very top it's a round shape and at the bottom it's a flat shape. So when you slide these in, go in through the top round shape and then it'll kind of just fall where it needs to fall. And you'll feel it when it hits the tappets. You just give it a little push and it'll click down in there. If you remember, when we put this back together, I said leave them super loose. So now it's super loose. And we're gonna leave it just like that because we know right now it's on top dead center because that's where we left it. We're not gonna turn anything. And we're gonna leave it right there. Okay. We're gonna spray this out. Make sure there's no debris or contaminants or anything on the case or inside it. Make sure it's nice and clean. And then we will put the case cover back on. The kit came with the new cover. It also came with the old, or the other style head gasket, but I had to do the fire ring since, you know, we did the piston and up the compression, all that fun stuff. And this a quick wipe. This was already cleaned off. I did that already. Like this. Line it up. Okay, get the gasket on there. If you remember, keep all your parts together. You have your parts still. Put a little dab of assembly lube. Guess it's not a little dab, but filler it. And then also I put it inside the case. Nice. Fill the bearing as well. Slide your cover back on. I don't know the torque on these. I'm just going to tighten them real good in a cross pattern. Okay. Now that sheet that I was talking about says to set it when it's cold to 3/1000ths. So on intake and exhaust. So we'll go in here, find our feeler gauge that we need. Now make sure your push rods are in the little cups on the rocker arms. You're gonna tighten it to where it's snug. Snug. Back it off just a hair. Feeler gauge in there. As you tighten it, you'll notice the feeler gauge, if you over tighten it, it's just gonna like hang up, but you want to feel the drag in there. Back and forth, just feel the drag. And then when it gets to the point where you can't pull it out, you went too far. You just want just a little bit of drag in there. So, right there. That one should be spot on. Little drag. I normally would take the whole feeler gauge itself off, but this is old and a pain in the butt, so I'm not going to. So we're going to try it different, like that. Valve lash is set, your push rods are in, everything should be good to go on that part. Now we're going to throw the valve cover back on so we don't get any debris or anything down in it. Starting to look a lot more like an engine again. Okay, I think one of the last steps in this one is going to be billet flywheel. Take a punch. There you go. Get that out. So, like in the previous video, I don't know where my lapping compound magically disappeared to. So, polishing compound's almost the same. It's not as gritty. But we're just gonna put some on here. Try to make these two surfaces a little better than they probably are to begin with. Beautiful. If you look in here, you get little shavings from doing that. Get all that out. And there was a rust spot down a little ways. Not like rust, just like surface rust on there. And as I spun it just now, it smoothed it all back out, so we'll knock our little key back in. Take our beautiful flywheel. Right over the key. There it is. This sucker tack. This one's a little easier to grab on than the other one. When it turns over and there's nothing click, cack, and banging, it's a good sign. If you had some contact, it's a bad day. Whoo, that sucker's cool. I ain't never seen one. That's pretty wild. Awesome. So this is required minimum 0.30 coil gap. So we gonna make that happen. 0.30, last one. Now, if your magnet's right there, you're gonna have a hard time, so make sure you just kind of spin it away. There you go. Quick check again. 30. All right, heat shield time. So there's certain holes on here that are threaded, and originally come on the machine like that, but they make it where you can clock it different. And the problem I was having is when I'd have to pull start it on the go-kart, I'd have to go right by my seat, and it was kind of a hassle. So I'm gonna clock this completely different than how it originally was on there. All right guys, the Predator's back together. We got the rod, the piston, the wrist pin, the cam, the head's back on, the new billet flywheel's on, the pull start's back on. The wires are still hanging back here, but we'll get to that later. We got the new plug-in, coils spaced like it's supposed to. It looks like a Predator again, and I am super excited about that. So we're gonna be doing a part 4 where I do the Mikuni carburetor, put the tank back on, fuel system stuff, get that buttoned up. But that's gonna wrap it up for today, guys. So stay tuned for part 4, and remember, love each other.